Let's talk through today's top stories. Sam Lewis is freelance journalist and political commentator with Young Voices UK. Sam, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Simon. Thanks for having me on.
Good to see you. Let's just pick up on the sleaze row. Boris Johnson was 300 miles away yesterday visiting a hospital, a visit he could do any time he wanted, but he particularly wanted to do it yesterday.
Well, this sort of raises, similar connotations to a few years ago when he missed the big vote on Brexit because he was in Afghanistan. Just so happened to be there when he was foreign secretary. But he could have done it any other time. The PR behind this isn't good. I mean, it was an opposition day debate, so the PM doesn't have to turn up. But of course, this isn't helping in the court of public opinion. And the polls came out the other day, and the Tories are down, and mostly because of this particular crisis. But the criticism has come from within the Tory party, from all around, not just from the opposition parties. You had Mark Harper, a former chief whip, saying he should apologise. You had Mark Fletcher, one of the Red Wallers from 2019, pointing out that MPs had told him that he's only been around for 2 years and that he doesn't know how the Commons works, but that he knows the difference between right and wrong. That's very strong language coming from someone that hasn't been around for very long, and Johnson has not helped himself out here.
Well, I guess the question is, obviously this was a strategy he employed. Was he actually running scared or just trying to handle the PR fallout?
I think he's just trying to handle the PR fallout. I don't think he is running scared. He just knows that, as a former journalist, he knows that today's headlines line tomorrow's, bird cages. But ultimately, this has been going on for a few days now, and it doesn't seem to be going away, and it does seem to be taking a hit in the polls. People want their MPs to be worthy and to show the best in society, because Parliament is a microcosm of the UK. But this has been going on for a few days now, and he can't seem to shake it off.
How damaged is his authority over this?
I think his authority within the Tory party is down a bit. Of course, his underling, Stephen Barclay, expressed regret over the mistake. And so people within the cabinet know that something went wrong, and the fact that Johnson isn't apologising won't help him, especially among the younger MPs who potentially don't have as much loyalty to the current government. But look, the Labour Party has been trying to paint the Tories as sleazy ever for the last 2 years. I think they're trying to employ the same tactic that they did in the 1990s, where they were able to make John Major's government seem sleazy. So whatever Johnson does, the Labour Party will try and paint him as sleazy, but I think that he needs to do some more work behind the scenes to calm all the MPs down, calm his own MPs down, and get them back on side.
Do you think the Labour Party could have capitalised on this crisis a bit better?
I think that some of the language they've used has been quite provocative. Yesterday, for example, one Labour MP called him a tin pot dictator, which he got a reprimand from the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle. We're talking about the way we talk about our politics. Of course, the Angela Rayner talking about Tory scum. This hasn't helped at all, and I think the Labour Party has jumped on this, and Keir Starmer has talked about how this has given that Johnson is trashing democracy. We're not trashing. This isn't trashing democracy. This is simply an issue that has gone on for a few days, and Owen Paterson has resigned, but the government simply handled it completely wrong and initially voted one way and then U-turned. So it's a PR issue. It's nothing else.
Sam, let's move on to COP26. A lot of criticism, of course, throughout that the main players have just not been there. China, Saudi Arabia blocking progress towards a deal. They're refusing to accept they must be fully transparent. And without transparency, this is all hot air, isn't it?
Well, I think the thing about China especially is that a lot of the time China objects to a climate target which is based on a reduction in emissions per unit of GDP, because that will expose what their current economic growth rates are. And given that the legitimacy for their party rule within China comes from how much economic growth they can bring about for their people, they don't want to be too transparent about it. If anything, it shows, again, the attitude which brought about the coronavirus, because they weren't able to control it within their border because they weren't transparent about it. So similar to Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Aramco doesn't want to show how much fuel they're getting out and how much profit they're making as a result. But we do need, as an international community, to come together, and we do need to get China and Saudi Arabia on our side if we are going to get anything done. But the dispute is ultimately delaying progress in other areas of the deal, such as rules on establishing a global market for carbon offsetting.
Over the weekend, Sam, there were, thousands, tens of thousands of young people demonstrating. And judging by his words yesterday, they might have had a former president prepared to walk with them.
Well, I think President Obama has this sort of messiah status and receives this welcome wherever he goes. But, activists were also quick to point out that under his own administration, there were broken promises on the climate, including the failure of a key promise by him in 2009 to deliver £1 billion a year in climate support to smaller nations. So he can come along, get all this welcome, make all the headlines, but I don't think he's actually doing too much help. He was in power for 8 of the last 20 years, and it seems that we are where we are now. And he's telling climate activists to stay angry. But, is that riling people up in certain ways and necessarily a good contribution to the debate? I'm not so sure.
Still got it, though, hasn't he? Let's have a look at the Telegraph this morning and this shocking front-page story that 11,600 people caught COVID in hospital and then died as a result.
Yeah, it's truly horrible news. I mean, a personal story, my mother had cancer in the last 2 years and she went into hospital. She didn't catch coronavirus, but the fact that she could have, it's definitely not good that this has come out. And it just highlights that there should be mandatory vaccinations for those who are around people who go into hospital or go into care homes, because they're the most vulnerable in society. And Jeremy Hunt, for example, wrote a column in favour of this. And I think that the debate this week, I think the government will make it mandatory that healthcare workers have to do this. But it also, some NHS hospitals are worried that if they do this, then then workers coming into work in the next few months may decrease. And obviously, as we're coming up to winter, this is when it will be most busy. So it's a double-edged sword, really.
Can we just move on to one story a little bit further afield? What is happening between Poland's border with Belarus?
So effectively, video emerged in the last few days that between 3,000 and 4,000 migrants have been funneled from African countries, from Middle Eastern countries, through Belarus to the Polish border, and 12,000 Polish troops have been deployed along it in order to stop this. The migrants there are trying to get across the border. They cut their way through, and at the moment, the Polish army, 12,000 of them, are deploying tear gas, trying to stop them from actually getting through. And this is basically the reason that Belarus have done this is Lukashenko. If you remember a few months ago, he tried to crack down in the aftermath of an election, which he fixed. And as a result, there were EU sanctions. Britain also imposed sanctions on Belarus. And so they're not particularly in our good books. And he promised that he would unleash, I don't have the exact quote, but he promised that he would unleash lots of migrants and refugees into the EU. And we're sort of seeing this coming through now. And I'm sure that Putin is saying this is a great idea because this will change focus of the EU and make people angry within the EU. But it's not a good look, and especially it's surprising though that the EU has completely come out backing Poland, especially because at the moment that Poland aren't in their good books concerning their constitution, how their courts are sort of blocking EU rights over Polish courts.
Sam, it's really good to see you. Sam Lewis, political commentator with Young Voices UK. When do you stop being young? When can you stop doing that?
According to Young Voices, it's when you're 35. But
35? Okay, that's
35.
something
Yeah. You can just about try again, Simon, I'm sure.
Sam, really good to see you. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.